I sat my medical school finals a few months ago, and about this time last year, when I only had a few months left to go, I was desperately scouring YouTube for any advice, any guidance or tips on how to approach finals, and frankly for anyone who had sat their finals to just tell me what to do, because I was genuinely feeling so lost. Unfortunately though, I wasn't able to find the video I was looking for. Sure, there were videos of some people vlogging the days around their finals, or those geeky medics OSCE type examination videos, but that ultimate advice video on exactly how people were going about preparing for their finals didn't exist. Fast forwarding a year now, I wanted to create that video that I wish someone had created for me to watch for my finals. I've collated all of my advice on all the big and small things that I did that altogether ensured success for me in my finals. I'm going to be talking about how I structured my revision and how you can start structuring your revision, but also about tiny changes that I made in my routine that helped me to get on track and stay on track personally. So if you're approaching your finals, please carry on watching. There may be a thing or two that you might find helpful. However, if you're in an earlier year of medical school, or you're not even a medical student at all, but you're sitting exams for a completely different subject, I believe you can still take value from this video. Hi everyone, my name's Hiba and I'm a doctor who's recently graduated from the University of Manchester. So the first step is something really basic, but I'm just going to start off with the basics, and that is, if you want to pass your finals with ease, you need to make the most out of your placement time. For those of you who are sitting finals, this is likely the third or fourth year of your placements now, and I know from experience that it can get really tiring to the point where you just want to come and do the minimum and then go home as soon as possible and study. You do obviously need to spend a lot of time studying at the desk before finals. However, it is a fact that the more experience you have talking to, seeing, examining patients on the wards in your placements, the easier you will find it to pass your finals and the better you will perform in your final exams. So my advice would be to really try your best to really engage during your placement time instead of just coming in for the attendance, because a condition that you see on your placement, a patient that you talk to, an examination sign that you see in real life is going to be far, far more memorable than anything you can read in a textbook. So from the first day of final year, or however much time you have left, go into your placements with an attitude and mindset of wanting to learn, and trust me, your examiners will be able to distinguish you from students who haven't made the most of their placement time. Next, I would say that one of the things that kept me lost for the longest time was that I was trying to revise for finals with no real plan in mind. I was just shooting in the dark, revising topics here and there, and I was oblivious to exactly what I have done already and what I have left to learn. In order to ensure that you have covered everything you need to know for your finals, you need to have a structure in mind, and you need to have a very clear overview as to where you're at in terms of your revision. So what I ended up doing, and what I recommend every single person watching this video should do, is to either create a Word document or a spreadsheet and write down all of the topics you need to know for your exam, and create some sort of system where you highlight or tick off the topics that you've been through or that you already feel confident in. A really good tool that I recommend for this is to go onto the Zero to Finals website, and on their website they have headings for all of the different topics in medicine and surgery, and when you click on those it takes you to all of the different subsections and the conditions that you need to know for your medical school exams. So what I did is I used this as a benchmark to create my own checklist for all of the topics that I need to cover, because I knew that these topics would be coming up in my exams. I created a Excel spreadsheet where I wrote all of the topics right at the top and then all of the subtopics below them for each subject, and then I filtered through all of the revision material that I had made in my first, second, third, fourth year of medical school and highlighted the conditions that I felt I was already confident in and left the ones that I needed to revise unhighlighted. This document was the absolute key for me surviving my finals, because it allowed me to keep an accurate account of all of the conditions that I'm expected to know about, all of the ones that I have been through, and all of the ones that I am not confident in or I've not even revised yet. You can make your own version of this. It doesn't have to be exactly the same. Then at whatever pace you choose to, you can go through the topics. You can do 1 a day, you can cover 2 a day, 3 a day, but you have to start with a visual representation, because there will be a lot of topics out there that you didn't even know that you needed to know. The next thing I did to prepare for finals, which is something I would advise every one of you to do, is to start using online question banks early and to do questions consistently every single day. I decided that from my first day of final year, I would do 30 Pass Med or Quest Med questions a day, no matter what happens, whether I was tired, whether there was a hurricane outside, I would get these questions done. And 30 questions wasn't even that many. It took me maybe 20 minutes a day, 25 at the most, but it meant that from day one, I was consistently refreshing my knowledge. Sometimes I would do the questions where you select all of the possible topics. So that meant that I was picking new things up. I was refreshing my knowledge on things that I hadn't covered in a while. I was identifying topics that I didn't even know I had forgotten about. And then sometimes if I was revising something that particular week or that day, I would select only the dermatology questions, for example, and do my 30 questions on dermatology. It really allowed me to become familiar with the way that common things are asked in exam questions. And it just allowed me to get really good at pattern recognition. As it got closer and closer to the exam, I slowly ramped these up. So to the point where a couple weeks before the exam, I was doing either a mock test a day or around 75 to 100 questions a day. But because I had started doing 30 a day from day one, I didn't feel overwhelmed at any point. I didn't feel that there were any particular topics that I hadn't had much experience in doing questions in. I felt quite confident going into the exam. Okay, so the next point is something quite similar to what I was talking about with the practice questions. But in my final year of medical school, I decided I would do one examination either every day or once every couple of days, so that by the time it comes to the final OSCE, I am slick at doing all of the examinations. As you'll be aware, if you're a medical student, there are 30 to 35 different examinations that you need to know how to do for your finals OSCE, including all of the musculoskeletal examinations, the pediatric examinations, all of the random different ones like thyroid, diabetic foot, DVT. In my fourth year of medical school, I felt like I left a lot of the examination revision too late, and I felt really overwhelmed in the days leading up to the exam because I was spending hours and hours just going through and practicing all of the different examinations that could come up. And that was time that I could have used on other aspects of revision if I had started doing the examination revision earlier. Revising the examinations early on really allowed me to have the examinations at the forefront of my mind rather than just somewhere in the back of my head. And it meant that when it got closer to the exam, I wasn't overwhelmed just looking at the sheer number of examinations that I need to know about. And it genuinely wasn't even that hard. It sounds like it's quite a lot of work, but actually if you do one examination a day, that's maybe 6 to 8 minutes a day. And this definitely did reflect in my exam feedback. I was quite lucky in the fact that I had someone to practice on, and I'm sure most of you can also make it work, whether it's a housemate, a sibling, a parent. Try to practice early on and it will make a huge difference. The next thing I gathered from doing my finals revision is that it's much better to have a general broad understanding of a topic rather than becoming fixated on the tinier details of each topic. This is something that was personally really hard for me and took me a long while to start implementing because I am a perfectionist, and if I'm revising a topic, for example bladder cancer, I am the type of person who will have the tendency to write about the 5th line surgery for bladder cancer in my notes. But actually, as I went through my final year, I realized it is really, really unlikely for you to ever be asked about anything in this much detail. And I ended up wasting a lot of my time trying to make my notes as detailed as possible. As I got closer to the exam and I realized the sheer amount of things that I have to be getting on with, I then did change my approach to trying to just grasp the broader concept of each condition. So if we take the example of bladder cancer, what type of cell does it occur in? What are the 3 big main risk factors? What age group does it occur in? 1 or 2 tests that would help you to diagnose it. And then very broadly, what are the treatment options? You are expected to know about a really vast amount of different conditions, but the knowledge that you're expected to have on each of the conditions is very surface level. You're not expected to be a urologist, which is what I was trying to be. I was trying to be a urologist, a gynecologist, a cardiologist, and every topic that I was revising, I was going into extreme detail, but that's just not feasible if you want to get through everything that you need to get through. So my advice is to revise in the most efficient way possible, and that is by just sticking to the basics for each condition. in a very similar vein, I would recommend making notes. I'm someone who loves making notes personally, but because of the sheer amount of content you have to get through for finals, I would recommend making your notes as brief as possible and as easy for your future self to read as possible. I went from a person who writes paragraphs upon paragraphs in notes to adapting a more bullet point style of note-taking, and then spend most of your revision time doing questions. I was a victim of the misunderstanding that if I don't write notes, I won't remember the information in the future. But trust me, when you're in the repetition of doing the questions again and again and again, you will start to retain the information without having to write it down. Okay, so the next thing is something that I've actually always done, and that is just to ask questions. I do think that it's played a part in helping me do well in my finals. But whenever you're unsure about something, when there's even the tiniest bit more clarity that you need on a topic, or you just want to know a little bit more about a certain topic, ask questions. I've never been afraid to ask a lecturer or a doctor on placement more follow-up questions to fully understand what it is that I'm seeing or what it is that I've been taught. And I found that that's often led me to pick up and learn about nuggets of information that I wouldn't have if I hadn't been curious. You may find that if you had asked a question about something you're unsure of, that could have been an answer to one of the MCQs that you get in your exam. So just don't be afraid to ask. The next thing I did that was really valuable in the lead up to my finals was teaching other medical students on a weekly basis. I've always said that teaching other people is the best way to learn yourself, because it really allows you to accurately gauge your level of understanding and your knowledge on that topic. At the start of my final year, I decided that I was going to send a mass email out to 50 other final year medical students, and I wrote in the email that I'd like to set up a weekly teaching group where we all take turns to teach each other a topic of our choice. And I got maybe 6 or 7 responses, but with that we created a weekly teaching group, and it was really nice to teach each other topics that one person may be confident on and another may not be so confident on, but also because of the amount of time we spent preparing these teaching presentations for each other, it forced us to really become experts in the topic that we were about to teach to the group. My first ever teaching presentation for this group was on bowel cancer and bowel surgery. And because I taught that subject, it's now a subject that stands out to me in my mind and in my memory, and it was a subject that I found answering exam questions on really easy. A quick add-on to that is we did the exact same with OSCE skills, but the OSCE skills we did probably closer to the exam, so maybe a month or so before the exam. And in a similar manner, we would meet up as a group, book one of the examination rooms in the hospital, and then practice examinations, particularly the ones that needed models, so like fundoscopy, otoscopy. Again, it was extremely valuable to do this, to see how other people are doing examinations. You often pick up really nice phrases that other people are using in their examinations that you aren't using, and it just gave you the opportunity to have that feedback from your peers. Okay, so this next one is something more personal and something that I felt helped me prevent a lot of time wasting around my finals. So I don't know if anyone else has this, but I have this incredibly bad habit of needing to watch something or have something playing in the background whilst I'm eating something. Like if I'm literally just eating a banana, I'll need to put something on in the background. When I was getting closer to my finals, I'd say maybe 2-3 weeks till my finals at this point, I found that I was wasting a lot of time, because to eat a banana, I would put on an episode of The Big Bang Theory, and then I would just end up finishing the banana in 2 minutes, but then watching right up until the end of the episode. So I decided I would put something on that I would actually gain value from, that would help me for my finals, and that didn't feel like I was wasting my time. So for example, a Geeky Medics counselling video, or a Zero to Finals video on a very niche topic that I hadn't really looked at. And I'm absolutely not saying that you should strip yourself of every pleasure when it's close to your finals, and that you should stop watching TV and replace everything with med school related content. That's not what I'm saying at all. But I just felt like, because some of these videos were things that I wanted to watch anyway, it was a much better use of my time putting those sorts of videos on whilst I'm having a snack, to prevent me from wasting time and leaving me more time to watch a TV show that I actually want to watch and properly enjoy later on in the evening. Similar to that, another thing that I decided to do a couple of weeks before my finals was delete my TikTok. Now, I'm not saying go and delete all your social media, but around the time when I was about to sit my finals, I cannot even explain how distracting I was finding TikTok. I was wasting hours scrolling, and it's not like I was intentionally trying to use social media to relax or to have a break. It was very much mindless, unintentional scrolling where I know I didn't want to be doing it, but I was doing it anyway. Again, you don't have to cleanse yourself of all of the entertainment in your life, and maybe you have more self-control than I do. But if you find that social media or one specific app is being really distracting, I would suggest trying to minimize that by muting it or temporarily deleting it. Finally, the last thing, this is something I feel like every person watching this video should do. It's really helped me get through some of the darker days in the lead up to my finals, of which there were plenty, whenever I felt like I wasn't going to make it through to the other side. And that is to write down, either on your phone or on a notebook, all of the nice things that doctors and your placement supervisors, people on your placements have had to say about you and your performance. One day during my final year, when I was feeling really low and really burnt out, I decided to just think about all of the nice things that doctors have said to me about my performance as a medical student and about my ability. To have little comments like that from doctors written down to look at when I was struggling or having a bad day really helped me overcome those feelings. It gave me a lot of encouragement and was something for me to signpost myself to help me believe in myself. It served as a reminder for me that I can do this on the days that I felt like I couldn't. I really appreciate if you've watched till the end of this video, because I think it's going to be very long, but I hope it's been the advice that you needed, the guidance that you've needed to maybe see your path to finals a little bit more clearly. You wouldn't have made it this far in your medical school journey if you didn't deserve to be here, and if you didn't have the ability to pass and become the doctor that you've always wanted to be. Hopefully you have been able to take some value. If you have, then I'd really appreciate if you subscribe and like this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.